All right, and just for those in the kind of waiting room, we're going to give it probably another 2 minutes to make sure that we've given it enough time for everyone to join. So just hold tight and we'll get started soon. All right, so we're officially at the 9:02 mark, so we're going to go ahead and kick it off. Good morning, everyone. My name is Angela Foust. I'm the Assistant Director with Development Services here at the City of Reno, and also joining us is Lauren.
And I'm Lauren Knox. I'm a senior planner here with the City of Reno as well.
So Lauren and I are working on some updates to our Title 18, and this is specific to our zoning code. So this week we're holding a series of stakeholder meetings, and then we're going to take it out to our Planning Commission and City Council to have more feedback. So just so you know, this is not the end of the feedback session. We have about, 4 more months that we'll be collecting input and feedback. So this is really just the kickoff. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay. So a little bit of background as to why we are doing this. Back in 2022, City Council initiated a text amendment to our sign code. And I will say, just going back before 2022, the City of Reno had worked with some consultants to adopt a new zoning code. And as part of that, they looked at the sign code and said, we really need to take that out as a separate text amendment. So let's not make a lot of changes now. Let's wait until we do it as a separate text amendment. So this has kind of been in process for a number of years. It's just been kind of put on hold. So we hired a consultant to help us. This is a firm, White and Smith. They are out of the Midwest. They have a background both in land use planning and law. So they kind of provide both perspectives of legally, how should we deal with signs, and from a zoning perspective, how should we deal with signs. So we hired them and we started off with a series of stakeholder meetings. These were back in 2023, so it was about a year and a half ago. We met with the sign industry, whether it was billboards or the local sign consultants. And we also met with Scenic Nevada and staff. And the kind of the questions we asked are, what are some good things about our sign code? And what are some bad things that you have challenges with or things that need to be amended? So at a high level, staff had a number of issues that they just run into administering our sign code. So when somebody comes in for a sign permit, our planning staff reviews it, And we keep running into the same issues over and over of what does the code mean or how do we interpret it? So we put together a list of those things. From the Scenic Nevada perspective, I think the one big thing that came out of those discussions, among other things, but probably the biggest one was our off-premise sign regulations related to billboards. There was a lot of legal history and lawsuits that had ensued. And so what's in our code today tied to billboards is what Scenic Nevada had kind of asked that we not change and just leave as is. So again, so that's specific to off-premise. And then in working with the sign industry, kind of similar to what our staff has challenges with, is they came up with a number of things that they struggle with. They from a local jurisdiction perspective, I think a lot of our sign consultants work with Washoe County and Sparks and Carson and Fernley, and so they have a good perspective of what's in other jurisdictions sign code compared to ours, and is ours easy to read or not. So initially, we were working with our consultant, and our plan was to basically delete everything and start fresh with a whole new sign code. And as we had those stakeholder meetings, we realized, well, maybe it's not as bad as we thought. So there's, again, a number of things that we could definitely do better. And so we tried to then just focus on those things. So what we have today is really the product of those discussions. Again, we're not looking for major changes. Some big things that we did not want to touch is anything dealing with our flashing signs or animated signs. There have been a lot of discussions with council just in previous years on nits and brightness. So we didn't want to touch that. We also had a lot of discussions on gas stations. I don't know if many of you remember that, but there was some requirements of how often can gas stations change the signs. And we looked at NRS, and they have regulations that we now have to require, that we have to be allowed to do. So we wanted to make sure that certain things of our zoning code we were not touching. So just so you know, we're not touching anything with brightness or nits or billboards. Trying to go back to at the heart, how do we make this a code that's easier to implement? So let's just kind of go through a couple of the big things. Number one is when we adopted a new zoning code back in 2021, a lot of our zoning districts, the names of them changed. And so there were about 5 zoning districts that we accidentally, just inadvertently, did not include in our sign table. So there's a table there on the right. This is just an excerpt from what's in our sign code. And you can see there's a column on the left, and it lists out all of our different zoning districts. And then within each district, we have separate sign regulations based on the height of your sign or the square footage of your sign. And so we have 5 zoning districts that are not in that table. So we wanted to make sure we included those. The first one is our mixed use airport. That is a new zoning district that we've only had since 2021. And that is parcels around the Reno Stead Airport and parcels around the Reno Tahoe, our main airport. So a lot of it is the airport itself. But outside of that, there's a number of parcels that are privately owned. They're businesses. And so they also need sign regulations. So we wanted to include that. The mixed use airport uses are more typically associated with industrial uses. If you look at our use table and what we allow in those zoning districts, they typically more align with industrial type uses. So our mixed use airport signs, we propose to kind of match our industrial sign regulations. And then that next category is the parks, greenways, and open space. For the most part, these are city-owned parks, not commercial areas. So we do have signs of most of our parks. So we put in some regulations of how high they can be and where square footage wise, what they can be. And then finally that UT5, UT10, and UT40, that is unincorporated transition, 5 acres, 10 acres, and 40 acres. This is really more of our kind of larger lot agriculture, typically what you'd see kind of on the edge of Reno, closer to unincorporated Washoe County. So while a lot of this land is just agriculture where you wouldn't have a business, we do have businesses. It could be, doggy boarding or equestrian related or some kind of winery related. So there are businesses and they would need some sign regulations. So we put some regulations in the code now that align with more residential type signage. So again, not a huge push. We're not seeing a ton of businesses in that zoning district, but we did want to give them the same kind of sign regulations that we would see in residential. All right, and then next up is our definition. This is, again, kind of a cleanup one. The word monument sign is in our zoning code, probably in over 20 different areas within the sign code, but we don't actually define a monument sign. So we've now added a definition, and just for clarification, monument would be similar to that McDonald's sign that you see on the top right, as opposed to maybe a pole sign or a wall sign or maybe a sign on a canopy. So we specifically call out a monument sign. Now we have a definition. And then pole signs, we'd had a lot of back and forth just over the years. Is a pole sign considered a freestanding sign? How is it different from a monument sign? So we tried to clarify that. And then freestanding signs, we also, that was already a definition, but we clarified that both a monument sign and a freestanding sign, I'm sorry, a pole sign are considered freestanding. And again, that would be opposed to like a sign on a wall. These are separate signs that are standalone, not on the wall. So we've updated those definitions. And then content neutrality. This is one just, again, we don't have any language in our code that addresses content neutrality. That's more of a federal regulation. We want to make sure we are aligned with what we are allowed to be looking at. And so this basically says we can look at a sign, but we can't look at the content of what it says. So that goes back to freedom of speech. The things that we can look at would be how tall it is, the size of it, the size of the letters, but we can't regulate what the words themselves are. Now, from an adult business perspective, we do have some flexibility to make sure that they are meeting requirements. I would say that there's no anatomically incorrect graphics on the sign, and there's some specific requirements on that, so we are allowed to look at that. But other than that, we're not supposed to look at what it actually says or what the pictures are, the logos. We can look at it from an on-premise, off-premise perspective. So if you have a sign, let's say at McDonald's, and you are advertising for Bank of America, that would be off-premise. We can look at the content to make sure that what you're advertising, the business you're advertising, is on the parcel that you're advertising. So this, again, just kind of clarifies that, gives us legally the right to do certain things and the right to not look at other things. So this is just another kind of check the box. We should have this in our zoning code. All right, so we have a couple kind of key issues that both the sign industry and our staff have grappled with for a number of years. And so we went through those and picked maybe some of the top key ones that we wanted to share with this group. So this is, again, kind of a snapshot of what's in our sign code today. So we have that table. On the left is our different zoning districts. We pulled out the NC, which is neighborhood commercial, just to provide an example. So if you go to the category of your wall signs, right now we have some regulations on how many square feet you can have on your wall sign. But within that, there's also a requirement, the area that's highlighted, that says all signs so all signage combined shall not exceed 400 square feet per parcel. Now, if you just have one business on a parcel, that seems easy to administer. But we have a lot of shopping centers zoned neighborhood commercial where you have multiple businesses in the shopping center. And the concern we run into, and again, you have these shopping centers that have been there for 20 or 30 years, so a lot of changeover in the businesses, a lot of changeover in the signs. And so when you have all these businesses that come in one by one over the course of years, signs go up in square footage, signs go down. On a parcel by parcel basis, if we're supposed to be tracking what the overall square footage is, that becomes a nightmare for staff to have to track the square footage of every sign on the wall of every business on that parcel. Also very difficult for the sign industry that's submitting an application for a sign. But secondly, if that 400 square feet per parcel has hit its limit and has exceeded 400 square feet, that means no new sign can be put on any wall. So we have businesses that don't have any wall signs at all. So we don't administer the code that way. Again, I don't think the intent was to eliminate wall signs and make a business not have the ability to have a wall sign. So we said, let's clean that up and let's give every business the ability to have a maximum square footage. So if, again, within the parcel, let's say all the other businesses have used up the quota of the 400 square feet per parcel, you're the next business coming in and you still get a wall sign, we just give you a max of 400 square feet. So you get something. We don't want you to have nothing. And again, this is how we administer it. So let's just clean it up to actually make it make sense. All right, the next one is an example from our public facility zoning. A lot of people think public facility, oh, it must be a fire station or a school or a library. Interestingly enough, we have a lot of public facility zoned parcels that have other uses. Office is probably the biggest other use that we have. And so again, an office is a business, businesses want to advertise. Interesting on this one, so the area in yellow is what's there today. It says if you have a freestanding sign, you get a 6-foot monument sign, and it has to be established through a conditional use permit. So the way that this has kind of just always been written is that you have to go through a public hearing process. It requires planning commission review and 3 months worth of an application to put up a sign. That is not how we actually administer this. We say, no, you get up to 6 feet for a monument sign if you're zoned public facility. So we said, let's clean that up. So what we're proposing is to get rid of that area in yellow and instead put in just a standard like we have all the other zoning districts. Here's the maximum height you would get. Here's the maximum square footage you would get. And you would get that by right. No, you don't have to go through a public hearing. If anyone wants to exceed anything in our sign code, they would have to go through a variance. And variances, you have to show there's a hardship. So it's very tough to get extra signage. And we kind of want to go back to that to say, no, here's the requirements. Make sure you meet the requirements. And here's the maximum that everyone would get. So we looked at public facility and said, well, again, if a lot of these businesses are schools, libraries, police stations, fire stations, offices, that is probably more aligned with the types of businesses you would see in a professional office zoning district or a neighborhood commercial zoning district. So we tried to better align the sign size based on those types of uses. So our recommendation was within the PF zoning, you get a maximum of an 8 feet tall monument sign, and you get a maximum of 60 square feet for your freestanding sign. And that would be allowed by right, does not require planning commission review. All right, another big one. If you've read our sign code before, you've seen that at the very end, there are 13 footnotes. These footnotes kind of go in circles, and it's very confusing for anyone to actually understand what this means. So just as an example, there's some fun ones here. So there's in certain zoning districts, you get a certain square footage of a sign, which is great. Let's say you get eight feet of signage. On a freestanding sign, let's say 8 feet tall. But the footnote number 5 is a great example. So allowable square footage can be doubled if you're on an arterial and if the speed limit is more than 35 miles an hour. So the problem with that is that who defines arterial? So Reno has major arterial roads and minor arterial roads. RTC has a separate designation for what they call arterial roads. NDOT has a separate designation for what they call arterial roads. So again, in trying to implement this, it became just very circular of like, well, who's defining this? And well, what happens if the designation changes? Because over time, road classifications change. Same with the 35 mile an hour speed zone. So 35 miles an hour, that seems black and white, but over time speed limits change. And so now we're creating kind of this non-conforming of, well, when was 35 miles an hour the speed zone? And what if it changes? Does that mean the sign is no longer in conformance with code? So we said, whoa, some of these things just don't make sense. Let's try and clean that up. I will say in some sections of the code, you get more square footage based on cleaning up these footnotes. In some sections of the code, you get less square footage. So we tried to find a balance between not giving too much more, but not taking away. So again, in some zoning districts, you'll get more. In others, you'll get less square footage or height. All right. And then another kind of key thing that we're running into, this is more from a staff perspective. I don't know that the average person even knows this is in our code, but we have different triggers when you would have to go through not just a sign permit, which is through our building department, but an additional review, such as a planning commission review, 3 months, worth of review and process. You have to go to the neighborhood advisory board. You have to go to planning commission for final review. So here's an example of like 3 different categories within our sign code that would trigger some kind of entitlement. And some of these are a conditional use permit, some are a site plan review, some are a major site plan review. So we went back and we said, well, what should the application type be? Yes, we want to elevate some of these to have to go through a public hearing, but let's just be consistent in what we're reviewing. So just for reference, a conditional use permit is a type of application that you would typically submit if you have a use. So as an example, if you have let's say a tattoo shop, and you're in a zoning district that requires a conditional use permit for a tattoo shop. So you'd submit your application and we would look at the use. We'd look at, how are the impacts to the neighbors from the hours of the use or the number of parking spaces or lighting of that use. Versus a sign, it's not really a use, it's more of a design. So with a major site plan review application, that really looks at more of like the character and the design of what that particular sign is. And so really, because we're not dealing with uses, we're dealing more with a site-specific type of thing. We said, let's make all of our reviews in the sign code consistent. So the new trigger, if you do trigger an entitlement, would be a major site plan review. That does require review by the neighborhood advisory board, and it does require review by the planning commission. So we're not adding new areas that trigger entitlements. We're just making it more cleaner and consistent, getting rid of the wording of conditional use permit, adding the wording major site plan review. All right, and then finally, the big topic of gaming. So a little bit of history on gaming and signs. Gaming, the casinos being non-restricted gaming facilities, have historically had almost unlimited signage. They have no limit on wall square footage. In terms of freestanding signs, they can go up to 100 feet in height without any kind of entitlement. Once they hit the 100-foot mark, they have to go through an entitlement or a planning commission review. But they have very open and kind of unrestricted sign regulations. And so that's been in place for over 20 years. What has also been in place is anything in our downtown Reno Regional Center Entertainment District. And so that's a big term. But that is an area that we defined. It was a zoning district. It was in our code from 2005 to 2021. So that 16-year window, that is where we also allowed that unlimited signage. It didn't matter if you were a gaming industry or a casino. This could be a convenience store or it could be a pawn shop. They've had that unlimited signage since 2005. Now, when we adopted our current code in 2021, so 3 years ago, that zoning boundary, that designation went away and it became something else. So what kind of happened when our consultant made that change over is they said, oh, well, we should look at we should create a gaming overlay district. This is a district that basically citywide, this is where we allow casinos. So the way it was kind of converted into our zoning code was that anything in the gaming overlay has that unlimited signage. It didn't matter, again, if you were a convenience store or if you were a casino itself, you were allowed that unlimited signage. So again, as we're looking at this, we're saying, whoa, 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 I don't think the intent was for all signage in the entire gaming overlay to have unlimited signage. Yes, the casinos, let's maintain what they've always had and keep that square footage and that height and that allowance to them. But let's kind of rein this in and go back to what's been in code. So allow more of our downtown core, our downtown mixed use entertainment district to have that unlimited signage, again, which is what has been in code since 2005. So I want to give you some maps so you can better understand these different boundaries. So this first map, everything in red is our original downtown core. This goes back to 2005 when we called it the Downtown Reno Regional Center Plan Entertainment District. So it was about 146 acres between that red kind of pod area of our downtown. We also had the hotel casino zoning, we called it HC zoning, and that was everything in purple in that boomtown kind of Verde area. So those were the parcels that had unlimited signage. In addition to those, if you were a casino, you had unlimited signage. Okay. Then 2021, we adopted a new code. A lot of our zoning districts went away or became something new. So again, this gaming overlay district was created. And with that, these are all the areas that if a new casino wanted to come to town, these are the areas they would have to look. And so what transpired then is that any parcel in these gaming overlays, these red areas, would be allowed the same unlimited signage. That big one, gaming overlay 3, is the airport and kind of parcels around the airport. Above that is the GSR, again, our downtown core. It's always been the downtown core. It's always has had allowed the unlimited signage. Going further to the west, we've got the Verdi area. And then going south, of course, we have all the main casinos, the convention centers in that area, that gaming overlay, the near Summit Sierras in that overlay, and then all the Tamarack and the Atlantis and Peppermill, they're all in that overlay. So again, this is about 2,000 acres where today you have unlimited signage regardless of what your use is. So we're proposing to modify that to this. This is back to our downtown core. So what we're proposing is let's kind of condense that and go back to the original rules that we had since 2005. Everything in orange is now what we call our mixed-use downtown entertainment district. It is about 136 acres. So the proposed language for the zoning code would allow any casino. So if you have a legally established casino, you get the unlimited gaming for signage. And also our downtown core would get that the same signage that they've always had, the unlimited square footage. Okay. Next steps then, like I said, this week we've held a number of stakeholder meetings. We are going to put these videos on our website. So if anyone missed it, they'll be able to watch it. And then in the month of October, we're going to go to Planning Commission and share a similar presentation just to get their feedback. They're not voting yes or no to adopt anything, just to get feedback at this point. And then likely in November, we'll go to City Council just to get feedback. Once we take in all the public comment, all the feedback from those two boards and commissions, we will then draft an ordinance and take that out through the process. And just so everyone understands too, anytime we change our zoning code, that's an ordinance change. So that does require Planning Commission approval. And then that goes on to City Council for 2 City Council meetings. So we still have several meetings in front of us before anything moves forward. And we are looking at probably winter of 2025 before we actually move forward with a draft ordinance. Okay. So at this point, we want to open it up to just questions and comments. And I'm going to stop sharing for now. So if you do have questions or comments, go ahead and raise your virtual hand and we can pull you over.
All right, Lori, I've unmuted you on our end, so you should be able to on yours as well.
Thank you very much and good morning. First of all, I just want to say that I'm representing Scenic Nevada, and we've looked at I've looked at most of the changes, and right now we can the only one we object to right now is the gaming overlay and mixed use entertainment district section, and that's what I'd like to just speak to today. Give you my comments, and I have a couple of questions. And so what I just like to start out saying is it's not really about what happened before. We think the code cleanup exercise, this is about what's in code now and how to make it more easy to understand. And I think that's what you were trying to explain. And in code now, the downtown entertainment district, which is called the MDED, gets the same signage as most of the other mixed use districts, 8 feet tall, 125 square feet for the most part. I guess a bigger on bigger parcels, and no digital signs except under limited circumstances. And the only caveat to that, and this is what's in code now, is that the casinos in the mixed use districts gets the unlimited signage. And so what way we look at it is that this proposal is actually increasing signs in the downtown entertainment district. So when you say you're reducing signage by limiting the gaming overlay sign to casinos, we see that's not a real reduction because no one interpreted it that way ever. So just adding text to limit the signs to casinos, you are clarifying and you're not decreasing signage. And that's what you should be doing in this sign code update. And that's what you said in your first draft, which was has been around for about a year. I first saw the first draft of this a year ago. And then it went to Planning Commission in the spring and City Council apparently in August, just in August, August 28th. And then 2 weeks later, that first draft was gone. And now you're circulating this draft, which is increasing signage in the MDED. And we want to know where this direction came from. It didn't come from Planning Commission. It didn't come from City Council. It's not coming from the downtown casinos because they already have these signs. So those are my questions. Where's this coming from? Because it's not anything that anybody's asked for. And this is my feedback. If you look at the MDED map that you put up there, the western boundary stops at Ralston Street. And Jacob's Neon Line District is half in and half out of that district. He just put up a 4,200 square foot digital sign on 4th Street that's twice as big as most people's houses. And it doesn't take much imagination to see a request coming down the road for a zone change to get the other half of his project into the MDED so that he could have unlimited signage throughout. And you know what he calls his district, his neon line district? He calls it a mixed use entertainment district. That's what it's defined as in the development agreement. So he struggled to get the signs he wants. The district court has ruled that 2 of his 3 large signs are prohibited and can't be built because they violated the code. And I know that's on appeal, but anyways, with this change you're making, he'll have as many signs as big as he wants. And so this is our feedback. It's extremely important to Scenic Nevada and all the community folks who agree with us that this change in the sign code be scrapped. Downtown looks bad enough already. Adding unlimited signage will make it look worse, and it will grow beyond the 136 acres you're proposing. It will lead to sign wars with everyone trying to outdo the guy next door. It will hurt property values. Too many signs do that. We are talking unlimited. Any business can have as many signs as they want, as big as they want by right in the downtown entertainment district. No public hearings, no public input, and the signs can be digital with animation, one screen after another showing videos, flashing, changing messages day and night, 7 days a week. We're not Las Vegas. This isn't Times Square. People don't like big flashy signs, and that's why they voted for a ban on billboards. And that's why the city council enacted that ban and then prohibited the digital billboards too. So this proposal isn't in line with what's been accomplished so far to limit signs and provide a better aesthetic. We think that you should continue to restrict gaming overlay signs to casinos, period. And that's it. That's my feedback. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Lori. Anyone else from, we've got a couple more.
Yep, looks like we'll start with Taryn Munson. I've unmuted you. You should be able to unmute on your end.
Great, thank you, ladies. Angela, could you please clarify what Ms. Ray was just discussing? Because I believe in your presentation that you shared just a few minutes ago that in the gaming overlay, that would be specific to the unrestricted gaming properties only and not all businesses. And that's what the intent would be, to take away from non-gaming businesses to have unlimited signage. Is that accurate?
So this is kind of a complicated discussion, and I know Lori and I have had at least probably 5 discussions already, so I don't, she's aware of how staff interprets it, but she disagrees. So here's the challenge. The way the code is written today is we have every zoning district, and then we have the sign allowance you get. We have a category called overlays. Within the overlay, we have a gaming overlay. So anything in the gaming overlay gets signage. And the way the table is written today is what we want to change. I think we are all in agreement that that needs to be changed. The way it's written today is that anything within a gaming overlay gets that additional kind of unlimited signage. You don't have to be a casino, it's any business. So we as staff are proposing to change that. We're saying, let's pull that out, let's change that language and say, from now on, it shouldn't be specific to a gaming overlay. It should go back to the way it's been since 2005, which is our downtown core. And we define that by a zoning district called the Mixed Use Downtown Entertainment District. So if you're in that district, you get the unlimited signage, which has been in place since 2005. In addition, if you are a non-restricted gaming, so a casino, anywhere in the city, you also get that unrestricted signage.
Thank you. That was my understanding as well.
Thank you, Karen. All right.
I think, Carrie, I have unmuted you on our end. You should be able to on yours as well.
Hi, yeah, thank you for the overview on the sign ordinance. I wanted to get, I guess maybe I didn't get a clear response to Lori's question on the motivation behind the change. That was an interesting question to me.
So the motivation is we want to clean up what is an unintended consequence. When our zoning code was adopted in 2001, the zoning titles, the zoning designations changed. And so we no longer have this downtown Reno regional center plan. That's what was in the code before. That went away and it was written to say anything in a gaming overlay gets unlimited signage. We want to change that. So we're all on the same page that needs to be updated. Not every parcel in the gaming overlay should get unlimited signage. We are all on the same page on that. Let's change that. I think where Lori's not understanding is that for years, since 2005, our zoning code has allowed unlimited signage in our downtown entertainment district. And that has been in place since 2005. So staff is saying, if that's been in place since 2005, let's go back to the way it was and just give it to that area, not the entire gaming overlay, just the downtown entertainment, as well as all the casinos. So what we're asking is let's go back to what had been in code in 2005. There's no political push here. This is just staff saying, hey, we caught an error, let's fix it. Now, if council says, whoa, 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 we want you to do 10 times more than that and also restrict the downtown entertainment district, we're going to take away that right, the right that they have had since 2005, then we'll go that direction. But again, from staff's perspective, we are not trying to do anything that is crazy and over the top. We're trying to go back to what has been in place. So we're trying to pull it out of the gaming overlay boundary, which we feel is too much, and go back to the downtown entertainment core and the casinos.
I don't know if I can ask a follow-up. I'll say thank you. That cleared it up for me. I did want to ask a question about the south side of Jacobs and the redevelopment that's happening there. Do they have, with this change, they're still gaming, will they still have the opportunity to do these very large signs, sort of appallingly large signs?
So all casinos have the right to do unlimited signage in terms of wall signage. So if they are putting signage on their casino parcel, then they have unlimited signage, just like every casino in town.
Okay.
But it has to be on the parcel with the casino. So I know they own a lot of land. That doesn't count. It has to actually be on the parcel with the casino.
Okay. I appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
And then maybe I should add too, a portion of Jacobs is within the boundary of our downtown entertainment district. So any parcel in the downtown entertainment district, again, today and since 2005, has had the unlimited signage allowance.
Good to know. Thanks.
I don't see any other hand raises.
Okay, so again, we will put all the different presentations. We're doing the same presentation. We've given, this will be, I think, our fifth one come today at noon. And then we'll do a full presentation again at Planning Commission in October. another presentation with City Council in November. Depending on the feedback and the direction that we get from council at that point, we will draft a fresh ordinance and move it forward. If there's a bunch of changes between, again, what's proposed now and what's in a draft ordinance, we'll have to hold another series of stakeholder meetings. If there's some just minor changes, we'll do a smaller group of stakeholder meetings before we go to Planning Commission and Council. So plenty of opportunity for everyone to take time to read it and try and understand it. Signs are extremely confusing. This is, again, from a staff perspective. Even our staff has challenges with understanding what the intent is or how we implement it. So our goal here is to clean it up and make it easier so that, you know, if you ask 5 planners, what's my signage, you get the same 5 answers. Right now, I can ask 5 people to look at our code and they give me 5 different answers, whether they're planners or sign consultants or average citizens. So let's make it easier to understand. So hopefully that people understand kind of that's the intent here. We're not looking to do any major changes. We're trying to clean it up, definitely reduce that gaming overlay boundary. I think that was the unintended consequence that I referred to for the last year. The intent was not that every business in the gaming overlay should have unlimited signage. The intent is to go back to casinos and our downtown entertainment district. So hopefully that has been made clear. Lori, I'm sure we'll have this discussion several more times, but that's the intent of staff. All right. Thank you, everyone. And we look forward to working with you over the next couple months.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.